They hauled my fishing boat away like it was junk, right in the middle of the day, with neighbors watching from their porches. The HOA president, Karen Whitaker, strutted like she owned the world, her chin tilted high as the police cruiser rolled up. She waved a stack of papers, claiming they gave her the right to erase me from Cedar Lake. Each move she made was a calculated stab at my dignity, my home, my life. But she didn't know I held the trump card of truth, so sharp it would cut her scheme to pieces. This wasn't just about a boat. It was about power, greed, and a fight for what's right. And I was ready to win. The trouble began 3 years ago when Cedar Grove Estates sprouted around my family's old property. Karen moved in, got herself elected HOA president, and immediately targeted my weathered cabin like it was a blight on her perfect suburb. She'd pass by with her clipboard, muttering about property values and community standards. I tried to play nice, even invited her for coffee to explain my cabin predated her neighborhood by decades. She flashed a fake smile and said, "We'll have to bring everything up to code, won't we?" Her tone sent chills down my spine, like she was already plotting to run me out. Karen's first attack came as helpful suggestions. Official-looking letters landed in my mailbox. "Dear Mr. Thompson, your residence violates community aesthetic guidelines regarding exterior paint and architectural consistency." I wrote back, politely noting my property's history. Karen showed up with a binder of rules, declaring, "These apply to everyone, no exceptions." She tapped her nails on the binder, eyes gleaming with satisfaction as I flipped through pages of absurd demands. "We've invested too much to let one property drag us down," she said, like my home was a personal insult. Next, she hit my wallet. A $200 fine arrived for displaying watercraft in a manner that disrupts visual harmony. My fishing boat, parked on my land, was suddenly a crime. When I explained I used it regularly, Karen handed me a document claiming the lake and its shores were under HOA control. "You can't claim exclusive rights to shared areas," she snapped. I tried to reason, saying, "There might be a mix-up about property lines." She waved me off. "The only mix-up is your refusal to comply." Then came psychological warfare. Karen spread rumors I was a selfish resident, hogging the lake and ignoring community values. Neighbors who once waved stopped meeting my eyes. Parents pulled their kids from my weekend fishing lessons, citing safety concerns Karen had planted. She even circulated a petition about a disruptive element, never naming me, but making it clear who she meant. I watched her go door to door in her bright green blazer, poisoning the neighborhood against me. One day, Mrs. Larson, an elderly neighbor who'd always been kind, crossed the street to avoid me, shaking her head like I was trouble. The humiliation peaked at last month's HOA meeting. Karen stood before 40 residents and announced, "One stubborn individual refuses to follow reasonable rules, threatening our property values." Every eye turned to me. Her slideshow featured my cabin, red arrows pointing out violations. I sat there, feeling like a criminal for living in my own home. "This noncompliance creates a domino effect," she said, as the room nodded along. She'd turned my neighbors into her allies, and I was the outcast. But that morning, when Karen had my boat towed and called the police, she crossed a line. Officer Daniels arrived, and Karen handed him papers, proclaiming, "This proves the lakefront is HOA property, and Mr. Thompson has been warned about unauthorized use." She stood triumphant, arms crossed, as the officer reviewed her documents. "This man's lawless behavior can't continue," she declared. I watched, stunned by her audacity. Was she delusional, or was this a calculated con? Either way, I'd had enough. That evening, I opened my filing cabinet, not for fishing licenses, but for something far more powerful: the 1978 land deed, property surveys, and my state property inspector credentials. For 20 years, I, Michael Thompson, had investigated fraud just like this. My fishing lessons were a hobby. My real job was exposing schemes like Karen's. Over 3 days, I dug into her lies. The county registry confirmed the lake and 2 acres of shore were still in my father's name. William Thompson never transferred to the HOA. Then came a breakthrough. Karen's husband, David Whitaker, showed up at my cabin, looking defeated. "Mike, my wife's gone too far," he said, hands trembling as he handed me photocopied financial records. "She's hiding things from me. I think she's stealing HOA money." The documents showed large sums moving through secret accounts, private calls, and meetings with developers. David whispered. She's planning something big, and you're in her way. My investigator instincts kicked in. Karen had siphoned $75,000 from the HOA fund, claiming it was for infrastructure, but it went to her accounts. Worse, she was negotiating to sell the lake to Green Hills Development for $300,000, contingent on proving HOA ownership. She needed me to go to clear the way. Through state contacts, I obtained emails between Karen and the developers, outlining their plan to remove the last holdout. She'd forged signatures, backdated agreements, and built a fake paper trail, assuming I'd never fight back. I consulted Laura Bennett, a real estate attorney and old friend. "Mike, this is textbook fraud," she said. "We could lock her up for years." But I wanted more than a quiet lawsuit. Karen had humiliated me publicly. Now the community would see her for who she was. I prepared for the next HOA meeting, armed with evidence, financial records, emails, and proof of my family's ownership. David called a special meeting, vaguely titled Property Rights and Financial Review. Karen, oblivious, thought she'd deliver her final blow. Over 60 residents packed the room, along with 2 local reporters David had tipped off. I stood, projector ready, and began. "I have information this community needs to see." I displayed the 1978 survey, showing my family owned the lake and 15 acres. Murmurs filled the room. Karen leapt up, face red. "Those are forged. The HOA controls all recreational areas." Her voice cracked as residents exchanged doubtful looks. Calmly, I pulled out my inspector badge. Michael Thompson, State Property Inspector, badge number 4521. For 20 years, I've investigated land fraud. Mrs. Whitaker's case is one of the boldest I've seen. The room went silent. Karen's jaw dropped. I showed the emails proving her $300,000 deal, the bank records of her $75,000 theft, and David's statement about her lies. David stood. "Everything Mike says is true. My wife deceived us all, including me." The crowd erupted. Mrs. Jenkins, Karen's loyal supporter, stood, tears streaming. "Karen, we trusted you. How could you?" Residents shouted, demanding answers. Karen sobbed, not from guilt but desperation. "You don't understand. Green Hills threatened to bankrupt us if I didn't get Mike out. They needed the lake for their $20 million project." Her confession sealed her fate. Police in the back stepped forward, arresting her for embezzlement, fraud, and conspiracy. David was granted immunity for cooperating. As Karen was led away in handcuffs, she glared at me, screaming, "This is bigger than you know." But her threats were empty. The reporters scribbled furiously as neighbors apologized for doubting me. Mrs. Jenkins hugged me, sobbing. "Mike, can you forgive us?" I smiled. Karen was convincing. What matters is that the truth came out. 3 months later, Karen was sentenced to 5 years in prison and ordered to repay $150,000. Green Hills Development faced federal charges, shutting down its predatory operations. David moved away, a victim of Karen's schemes as much as anyone. The community elected a new HOA, asking me to lead. I declined, preferring my fishing lessons. They chose Mrs. Jenkins, who prioritized transparency and property rights. Neighbors apologized, and my fishing classes overflowed with kids and parents eager to learn from the man who saved Cedar Lake. The community erected a sign, Thompson Lake Community Area, preserved by Michael Thompson's courage, 2024. I asked them to call it Community Lake, but they insisted. It became a gathering spot where kids asked me to retell the story of saving the lake. My favorite moments were teaching kids like Tommy Jenkins, Mrs. Jenkins' grandson, to cast a line from my old boat. "Grandpa Mike," he asked one day, "why did that lady try to steal our lake?" I explained, "Some people lose sight of what matters, but good communities protect what's right." On quiet evenings, I sit on my boat, watching families picnic by the shore. The lake reflects the sunset, just as it did when my father bought this land 40 years ago. He wanted a place where people felt welcome, and we've kept that dream alive. My boat, once a target, now symbolizes resilience. Real power isn't about titles or money, it's about knowing your rights and standing firm. Cedar Lake is safe for generations, and every laugh from a child casting their first line reminds me why we fought. What do you think about this story? Have you ever faced injustice or abuse of power in your community? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Was Michael right to expose Karen publicly? Or should he have handled it privately? How would you stand up to someone like Karen? Let's discuss what it means to fight for justice and protect what matters most.